My God, it chills my heart to see the ways men come to terms with evil nowadays. Sometimes I swear I'm moved to flee and find some desert land unfouled by humankind. Welcome to Positive Readings. Today I'll be looking at Moliere's The Misanthrope. The Misanthrope is likely Moliere's most popular play. It was written in 1666. My version was translated by Richard Wilbur, often called the greatest translation of this play. Moliere is called the Shakespeare of France. While that might be true, his work is a lot easier to read and more lighthearted. I would also argue that his characters have less at stake. In this play, no one dies. Most of the action of this play is just conversations. You could almost argue that this is a philosophical discussion, and we're going to try to dive into some of the philosophical topics that this play brings up. This play revolves around Alceste. He is our misanthrope, and his big problem is he wants to just say things, say the truth, say things as they are. He doesn't want to sugarcoat anything. He hates flattery, and this leads him into a number of problems. The play begins with him actually rejecting his friend Falante. His friend Falante has sympathies with Alceste. He agrees that the world is false, but he thinks that he has a better way of dealing with the false world than Alceste by just rejecting people and saying anything he wants to say. Other than this argument, there are no big events or deaths or anything like that. The first event, you could say, that leads to more hardship in the play is a visit from Orant. Orant is an aristocrat like everyone in this play, but he has more power in the court, and he also fancies himself to be a poet. He wants to read his poetry to Alceste. Alceste does not want to hear it because Alceste is basically telling him he's going to tell him what he really thinks about it, and he knows that Orant will not like this. Orant insists. He reads the poem. Alceste rips it apart, and Orant gets angry about that. This later comes back by the end of the play to give negative consequences to Alceste, because Alceste has a court case. We don't really know what this court case is about, but he ends up losing it, and that's kind of the climax by the end. In between this, there is a love affair that Alceste has with Célimène. And Célimène is not an honest person, so it would seem strange that Alceste would like her. And that's where we see some of the hypocrisy that Alceste might contain. There is some discussion about what makes a good friend, what makes a good lover, which we're going to read about in a moment. And eventually, Célimène also rejects Alceste, so he's left alone at the end and determined to exit society and go off and live by himself. The only happy people in this play, or the only happy ending we get, is between Falante and Eliante. Eliante was interested in Alceste, but she ends up marrying Falante at the end, or at least it's implied that they're going to have a romantic relationship. So let's look at the argument for saying just what you feel, being honest to the point of offensive. Perhaps this is a free speech versus censorship argument. Certainly there's self-censoring going on. Another way to think about this play is a dramatization of preference falsification. Preference falsification is when you falsify what you prefer. So you don't say what you really want. because there's social pressure on you. So this would be Falant, whereas Alceste, he has no preference falsification whatsoever, and he bears the burden for that often, and has a lot of negative consequences for that. So here's the argument. After Alceste has explained how he detests flattery and falseness, people not liking each other, yet then pretending to be friends, Falant says this to him: "Come, let's forget the follies of the times, and pardon mankind for its petty crimes. Let's have an end of rantins and of railins, and show some leniency toward human failings. This world requires a pliant rectitude. Too stern a virtue makes one stiff and rude. Good sense views all extremes with detestation, and bids us to be noble in moderation. The rigid virtues of the ancient days are not for us. They jar with all our ways, and ask of us too lofty a perfection. Wise men accept their times without objection. And there is no greater folly, if you ask me, than trying to reform society. Like you, I see each day 101 unhandsome deeds that might be better done. But still, for all the faults that meet my view, I'm never known to storm and rave like you. I take men as they are, and let them be, and teach my soul to bear their frailty. And whether in court or town, whatever the scene, my phlegm's as philosophic as your spleen." And that's a memorable line for me, that last one, "my phlegm's as philosophic as your spleen." This would be a reference to this now debunked or this old-fashioned idea about the different humors, different fluids in the body, and how that shaped disease and also behavior. So someone who was phlegmatic, lots of phlegm, they were calmer, whereas if you had lots of spleen, you would be angry. So Alceste is he's spleenful, showing his anger, whereas Falant is phlegmatic, and he's saying that this is a more philosophical, or in this version, this translation, it's as philosophical as your spleen. He's saying we need to accept the times without objection, right? We can't reform society. We need to just kind of take things as they are. And that's actually the more philosophical way than trying to voice your disgust, your anger, your rejection of everything. Alberto Hirschman's Exit Voice Loyalty, Responses to Decline in Firms, Organizations, and States, gives us one way to think about Alceste's rejection of society. This would be voice, and whereas Falant, he's showing loyalty, right? He finds this to be the better, more practical way of conducting oneself within society, right? Showing some of that preference falsification. One passage here that's worth reading and thinking about with Alceste's actions comes on page 33. The voice option is the only way in which dissatisfied customers or members can react whenever the exit option is unavailable. This is very nearly the situation in such basic social organizations as the family, the state, or the church. In the economic sphere, the theoretical construct of pure monopoly would spell a no-exit situation, but the mixture of monopolistic and competitive elements, characteristic of most real market situations, should make it possible to observe the voice option in its interaction with the exit option. If we think of society as having a monopoly on the form of life, you don't have many options. You either live in that society or you exit society. So Alceste, finding that the exit option is essentially unavailable unless he decides to reject society completely and live alone, he has chosen to voice. And that's what he does throughout this play. So we see this interaction between these two states, voice, complaining or criticizing, and exit. Am I going to get out of here? Will I leave this society? Which is obviously a big jump, a big decision to make. This falseness of society, what Alceste deems an evil, can be most clearly articulated as flattery. This is a concept that comes up a lot in this play, and this is a topic that Alceste attacks directly. So he first brings it up. This is when Alceste is hanging out with Celimene, the woman he loves, and her other suitors. The other suitors are kind of egging her on to talk bad about everyone who she's meeting as friends when they're not, but now when they're not around, she's criticizing them, insulting them, talking about all their little problems that they have, but not saying it to their face. So of course, this is something that Alceste does not like. So Alceste says, "No, no, by God, the fault is yours, because you lead her on with laughter and applause." So he's speaking to the suitors, right? Because he's saying this is your fault that she's like this, because you're egging her on. "And make her think that she's the more delightful, the more her talk is scandalous and spiteful. Oh, she would stoop to malice far, far less, if no such clack approved her cleverness. It's flatterers like you whose foolish praise nourishes all the vices of these days." So again, it is the flatterers, the people who are not willing to say what they like or dislike, the preference falsifiers, who Alceste has the most problem with in society. These are the ones he wants to attack. Alceste does not stop there, though. He offers I would call quite philosophical argument, an interesting argument that actually gets us close to John Stuart Mill's definition of, or argument for, free speech, when he explains why he is criticizing, even insulting, the woman he loves. In response to one of the suitors, Alceste says, "I see her charms and graces, which are many, but as for faults, I've never noticed any." And then Alceste responds, "I see them, sir, and rather than ignore them, I strenuously criticize her for them. The more one loves, the more one should object to every blemish, every least defect. Were I this lady, I would soon get rid of lovers who approved of all I did, and by their slack indulgence and applause, endorse my follies and excuse my flaws." Alceste's argument here is that the suitors around Celimene who are flattering her are bringing out the worst in her, and a true lover would criticize these faults and therefore make their love better for it. As I mentioned, this is a similar argument that John Stuart Mill puts out for why it's such an evil to censor, because we're depriving not only the listeners from possibly correcting their false notions, but we're not giving them the opportunity to strengthen their arguments. A similar argument was put forth by Balthazar Gracian, who wrote, or is credited for writing, what some people call the first self-help book. This is the Pocket Oracle and Art of Prudence. He was a Spanish monk, and he has an interesting entry here called "Know How to Use Your Enemies." He says, "You must know how to take hold of everything, not by the blade which wounds, but by the hilt which defends. This applies especially to envy. Enemies are of more use to the wise man than friends are to the fool. Ill will usually levels mountains of difficulty which goodwill would balk at tackling. The greatness of many has been fashioned thanks to malicious enemies. Flattery is more harmful than hatred, for the latter is an effective remedy for the flaws that the former conceals. Sensible people fashion a mirror from spite, more truthful than that of affection, and reduce or correct their defects, for great caution is needed when living on the frontier of envy and ill will. So if we listen to what our critics have to say, even if it is coming at us with ill will and hatred, we can fashion a better mirror of ourselves. That's how he puts it. A more truthful mirror than flattery is going to present. Because flattery, as he says here, is going to block our weaknesses. We're not going to see them, whereas ill will and hatred, criticism is going to bring them to the surface. We're going to see them, and therefore we can correct those, and we can become stronger for it. So again, very similar to Elseth's argument, also similar to John Stuart Mill's argument for free speech. And for a pop culture reference, this would be similar to Scott Walker's lyric in Big Louise when he says, "In a world full of friends, you lose your way." So if everyone's kind to you, everyone's flattering you, you will lose your way. Again, exploring the consequences that come from a free, liberal mouth saying exactly how you feel whenever you want. There's another interesting passage here conversation between Elseth and Arcione. Arcione is another suitor of Elseth. He has a lot of women who are interested in him despite being this disagreeable character. And she says to him, "I only wish, sir, that you had your eye on some position at court, however high. You'd only have to hint at such a notion for me to set the proper wheels in motion. I've certain friendships I'd be glad to use to get you any office you might choose." So here you go. We have some more kind of playing. You're kind to me, I'm kind to you. I'll get you into this office, get you into this position. This is precisely what Elseth does not like. And as we'll see from his response, not only is he going to reject it, but he's also well aware of the consequences that he is getting from not playing the game, but he's also aware of the peace of mind that he gets as well. "Madam, I fear that any such ambition is wholly foreign to my disposition. The soul God gave me isn't of the sort that prospers in the weather of the court. It's all too obvious that I don't possess the virtues necessary for success. My one great talent is for speaking plain. I've never learned to flatter or to feign. And anyone so stupidly sincere had best not seek a courtier's career. Outside the court, I know one must dispense with honors, privilege, and influence, but still one gains the right, forgoing these, not to be tortured by the wish to please. One needn't live in dread of snubs and slights, nor praise the verse that every idiot writes, nor humor silly marquises, nor bestow politic sighs on Madam So-and-so." So Elseth sees himself as being too plain-spoken, too honest to work in government leadership, to work high up. Maybe this applies to companies as well. And as he says, outside of the court, so, not being part of this, I'm going to lose, I'm not going to have honor, I'm not going to have privileges, I'm not going to have this influence. So these are all negatives, but what I'll gain is I won't be tortured. I won't be tortured by the wish to please. One needn't live in dread of snubs and slights. So he's not going to have to worry about pleasing people. He's not going to worry when people reject him or snub him. He's going to have peace of mind by rejecting this false world. At least that's how he sees it. The Misanthrope culminates with Elseth losing everything, essentially, or having a number of negative consequences unfold. The first one is that he loses his court case. This is direct result of criticizing Oronte's poetry at the opening. I think this would be the second scene of the play. And now by the time we get into Act 5, he's lost his court case. Soon after that, Celimene also rejects his offer to run away. She feels she's too young. She doesn't want to live as a hermit, so he rejects her. The discussion that Elseth and Falante have about the court case, however, proves to be, again, quite interesting. It shows the rationale that Alceste has for living as a misanthrope, and even shows that he enjoys being unhappy to a certain degree. He enjoys having the license to complain. And maybe this is similar to the license deviance that the comedian has. And Alceste, to a certain extent, is a comedian. Falante tells Alceste, hey, we can, you lost your case, no big deal. We can try to reopen the case. And Alceste says, no, let the verdict rest. Whatever cruel penalty it may bring, I wouldn't have it changed for anything. It shows the time's injustice with such clarity that I shall pass it down to our posterity as a great proof and signal demonstration of the black wickedness of this generation. It may cost 20,000 francs, but I shall pay their 20,000 and gain thereby the right to storm and rage at human evil and send the race of mankind to the devil. So, at first, Alceste would seem to be almost taking a noble position, similar to Socrates in Plato's Credo. This is what the court has given me, so I'm just going to accept it. But that soon changes, and he says, I'm going to accept this so I have proof that the world is wicked. I'll pay the fine, and it's worth it, so I can, as he says, the right to storm and rage at human evil. So I'm willing to take this fine, pay this penalty, so I can complain. Falante, on the other hand, responds characteristically, as he did at the opening of this play, with a philosophical argument. Falante is no lightweight here. No, all you say I'll readily concede. This is a low, dishonest age indeed. Nothing but trickery prospers nowadays, and people ought to mend their shabby ways. Yes, man's a beastly creature, but must we then abandon the society of men? Here in the world, each human frailty provides occasion for philosophy, and that is virtue's noblest exercise. If honesty shone forth from all men's eyes, if every heart were frank and kind and just, what could our virtues do but gather dust? Since our employment is to help us bear the villainies of men without despair, a heart well armed with virtue can endure. And he trails off, he's interrupted there. So Falante's argument is that we need villains, we need dishonesty, because without that, we won't have the opposite. We won't have men and women of virtue. We won't have philosophy. So their bad behavior opens up the opportunity, the occasion, as he says, provides the occasion for philosophy. This is a thoughtful perspective from Falante. So Falante's philosophy seems to be take things as they are, be willing to criticize, but maybe you don't have to do it openly. You can do it with your friends. So we have two positions on how to approach the world. Ultimately, if someone is going to preference falsify, like Falante, of course, he's not always preference falsifying. He tells the truth to his friend Alceste, but at some point, the preference falsifier is going to have to, or should want to, say what they really feel. It's a tremendous burden to carry around your true feelings, but as we can see, it's also a tremendous burden in Alceste's case to express your true feelings. Moliere's The Misanthrope, a philosophical look at how one should conduct themselves in society. Should we speak the truth freely with disregard for how others feel, or should we hold our objections inside and find a different outlet for them, perhaps a creative outlet?